We're all familiar with Brown versus the Board of Education, right? Yes. It was a landmark decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled that U.S. state laws establishing racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. The decision partially overruled the court's 1896 decision on Plessy versus Ferguson that said that separate but equal was constitutional. And it also said that separate school facilities for black and white children were inherently unequal. Now, this was the death knell for segregation and Jim Crow in the South. Needless to say, the South did not like this verdict and did not take it laying down. Enter the Southern Manifesto of 1956. March 12, 1956, Howard Smith of Virginia, also chairman of the House Rules Committee, introduced the Southern Manifesto in a speech on the House floor. And it was also, the Southern Manifesto, was also called the Declaration of Constitutional Principles, something that was signed by 82 representatives and 19 senators, all from states that had once made up the Confederacy, coincidentally. And it's also important to note that under Howard Smith, the Rules Committee became a graveyard for numerous civil rights initiatives in the 1950s. Yes, they all went there to die because he just kind of was a roadblock. Yeah. Now, in his opening remarks, Howard declared that the ship of state had drifted from her moorings and described the High Court's record on civil rights as one of repeated deviation from the fundamental separations of power and constitutionally implied autonomy of the states. The manifesto would go on to declare the verdict in Brown versus the Board of Education as an attack on states' rights and an abuse of judicial power. He says, "We regard the decision of the Supreme Court in the school cases as a clear abuse of judicial power. It climaxes a trend in the federal judiciary undertaking to legislate in derogation of the authority of Congress and to encroach upon the reserved rights of the states and the people." A lot of fancy words to say clear abuse of judicial power and goes against states' rights. Now, this particular quote is my favorite ridiculous quote from the manifesto, and it's full of hot mess. Yeah. Now, they go on to say that this unwarranted exercise of power by the court, contrary to the Constitution, is creating chaos and confusion in the states principally affected. It is destroying the amicable relations between the white and Negro races that have been created through 90 years of patient effort by the good people of both races. It has planted hatred and suspicion where there has been heretofore friendship and understanding. The foolishness that they had the audacity to write down. They sincerely believed that separate but equal was constitutional. They sincerely believed that desegregating the schools was destroying the amicable relationships between the white and the Negro races that has been created through 90 years of patient effort by the good people of both races. That was highlighted through 90 years of terror, violence, massacres of white people, burning down black homes, cities, and towns, lynching black bodies, violating black women, stealing from black people. They thought that that was an amicable relationship that was now being torn apart by a verdict from the United States Supreme Court.